The Super League Grand Final is back where it belongs. The theatre of dreams. 80 grueling minutes representing the pinnacle of our sport. Only a select few know what it's like to experience the Grand Final both on the pitch and from the stands. But today, these giants of the sport are here together, not just for the love of the game. Today is the final stop on a powerful journey impacting thousands of lives across the UK. Rugby League is the lifeblood of northern communities. It's woven into the social fabric. But there are other, harsher realities that connect places like Hull, Leeds, St Helens, Doncaster and Wigan. These areas have some of the highest male suicide rates in the country. 3 out of 4 suicides in the UK are men, and globally, on average, 1 man dies by suicide every minute of every day.
We're all big, strong men, aren't we? We all like to think we can deal with all the problems.
Same as we've all got physical health, we've all got mental health.
It can become a problem when we don't know how to manage it.
Now, during a time like no other, a first-of-its-kind programme is using elite athletes to drive real conversations around mental health.
This is a workshop for when people do go through problems, because we've all gone through problems.
We don't show our emotion, or we don't say when we're struggling. I want to break all those stigma.
15 legends of the game have set out on a journey to share their own untold stories and deeply personal experiences, visiting the heart of rugby league communities as part of Movember's pioneering Ahead of the Game programme. A journey to change the way young men and others think.
In my generation, we were told not to talk about mental health. But your generation, we're encouraging you to do the exact opposite. 10 years ago, I lost those 2 friends. They chose to take their life. Some of the things what they wish they'd known about, you guys are going to know about today.
It's game day at the Shea in Halifax for a Panthers side that includes France international Kevin Larroyer.
Kevin,
Comment ça va?
bien, toi? J'ai fini. Parlez-vous anglais? Un petit peu, a little bit.
Kev is one of 15 players giving up their time off the pitch to help educate the next generation about mental health. His path into rugby league is a unique one. The sport has defined him, and he's come to value the importance of social connections and the difference people around him can make. As a professional sportsman, mental fitness is as important as physical fitness in how Kevin performs on a match day. His journey with mental health started well before becoming a star though.
As far as I can remember, I always had mental health symptoms. Couldn't find my place at home. I didn't feel I was loved. My mom never really gave me some affections, and that's something I really suffer about. I always felt like I was a liability for her. At the age of 6, I've been taken away from my parents to grow up in a social service house. And obviously in those kind of places, there's no place for showing emotion or feelings. You have to bottle up and grow a thick skin. Rugby has always been my exit door, so I put my heart in rugby. This is a place I felt valued. My mom used to beat me up quite often, so I used to go to school often with bruises and stuff like that, so they used to tell me what happened and just saying, oh, just fall over or stuff like that. But one day I went to school and I had 1 or 2 teeth missing. Came back from school one night and my dad was there, my mom, and two people that I didn't know, a man and a woman, around the table, and telling me that tonight I wasn't going to sleep at home. So I was 6, my little sister was 3-year-old, and I felt literally abandoned and loads of question mark, because I was like, why am I taken away and my sister can stay with my mom and dad? We had to sleep I remember in a bedroom with 12 of us on bunk beds. There were no bedtime story. It was quiet now and dark. And I remember at night, that's the time I was crying. I started playing rugby.
Yeah.
And that was basically my happy place.
Kev's personal challenges didn't end as a youngster though. In 2016, his playing contract with Hull KR came to an unexpected end.
The first real adversity, then big adversity that you come through as a professional is a big injury.
Yeah.
And how did that affect you?
It was tough because not really anybody checked up on me. So I was starting to feel homesick and lonely. And at the end of that year, I still had 2 years on my contract, and basically went to the office after the £1 million game and said, there's no contract for you. Yeah. And that literally happened 3 days after I bought a house. Yeah. And coming back home when newborn baby, partner no back at work yet, I was like, what am I gonna do? So I was just like, just train on my own. Yeah. And from that, go signed by CAS.
Yeah, great.
But literally, on my first week, I started CAS same. I was like, God, that was a new start. Felt really motivated, and received a call from mom telling me that my sister took her own life. That was tough because a year before that, she tried. And I've done this mistake is coming back and thought she was fine. So when a year after that happened, I just felt like a bad big brother because I haven't checked up on her, because had this habit to just be on my own, that it didn't came in mind that now I had to check up on her.
That's why you got involved in ahead of the game, isn't it?
My sister has been a big factor, but also it was the fact when I was in the hall, people have been reaching out to me, and now I'm feeling a lot better. I feel like it's my duty to give back. You all right?
Yeah.
Good?
What's your name?
Kevin?
Oh yeah, he told us about it.
Especially now being a dad, I don't want my son to even experience 1% of what I experienced as a child. But also I don't want any other child to experience being unloved, being useless, being like not acknowledged. And I want to help those kids to build up their self-belief. Because if you know your quality, you know how good you are, when you get a setback, you'll be like, do you know what? I can do it. As far as no right or wrong, just want to...
Kevin's taking that message into local sports clubs to help players of the future with their own mental fitness outside of the game.
Who want to take me for a push-up challenge?
Me.
Come on,
Me.
I'll take you. I'll take you.
Please.
No, I'm joking, you can sit down, but... Wait.
Stats show that half of all mental health issues start before the age of 14 and 75% start before the age of 24. It's why intervening early could make all the difference in giving young people the skills to cope with the challenges ahead of them.
For example, do you recognize any of these signs? Did you feel like your heartbeat, when you told me, no, know me, did you feel your heartbeat had been going higher? Did you feel a bit like sweaty hands? Before most of the game, I feel really anxious. I feel all those things. And maybe, you know, another situation, it might be a bit too young, but you know this girl you fancy in your class? When you know you're going to see you're going to see her tomorrow. Yeah, I can tell you have one. You have one that you fancy. You feel a bit all of this. Oh God, she's there, and you feel like shortness of breath. But that's absolutely fine. It's not normal if you feel like that constantly for a longer period of time, for days, for weeks. This is when it needs to be addressed.
Kevin's session at Cottingham Tigers isn't a one-off. He and 14 other Rugby League pros have spent the last 18 months on the ground with grassroots boys, girls and wheelchair rugby clubs, trying to prevent the next generation from going through the same kind of struggles that they did.
These people on the board, do you recognise any of them? Yeah, so they're all at the top of their field, or at some point in their careers, they've been top of their field, but they've all shared a mental health issue, a mental health problem. It just shows that you can be really successful and really amazing at your sport, but still struggle with a mental health illness or problem, and that's okay.
It's just about literally recognising things, whether it be a teammate, family member, whatever it might be. And if you spot some of those signs and symptoms, potentially we can not just help ourselves out, but we can help somebody else out. And there's no better understanding and feeling of that. You know, when somebody is struggling, it's about being able to put your arm out. One of you boys, or guys or girls, will go over in that chair, and I guarantee there's a teammate will come up beside and they'll put their arm out and they'll pull you up off ground. So why don't you do that in life?
Back at Cottingham, Kevin's reflecting on how similar training could have helped him, and in turn his younger sister.
How she felt, and maybe she could have told me that she wasn't feeling right, and maybe I would have been able to help her. Do you understand? So that's why it's really important. And for example, if one of your friends is talking to you about suicide or self-harm, you need to take it really, really seriously. If someone is telling you that, that's a red flag, and you need to speak to an adult straight away. So that's good for me. Just remember one thing, be a good mate. That's really important. And yeah, and take care of yourself as well. That's really, really important. So thanks guys for listening to me.
Should we do the push-up contest?
Do you want to do it? Oh, let's go. Let's do a bit of push-up contest then.
Ready.
So ready? Go. Let's go.
Leeds came up and took the grand final from second. Any one of the 8 this year is capable.
Oh, there's an incident. Now the judge says it's on. Someone got clattered.
The key senior and John Wilkin going at it hammer and tongs. Major contact, proper punch, yes.
As Tony Smith says, the adrenaline sometimes runs through their veins, irrespective of which club they play for.
The downside of having a competitive nature in a testosterone-filled sport, sometimes you came head-to-head with each other.
Rhinos legend Keith Senior had a fearsome reputation in Super League, and with it won 5 grand finals during his time at Headingley.
I said all along, age is just a number. 33, but when you come stuff like this, you just want to keep going.
But it was when Keith was still playing at the highest level that things started to fall apart.
We're all superhuman and we can all go forever. That's the perception, and that's how you want it. But the realistic factor is, as soon as you get to 30, you're a veteran. You always want it to go on forever, but you always want it to be a fairy tale ending. And it didn't happen for me. Rupturing my ACL at 35, then to be told that I'd never play the game again, I probably was a little bit naive in thinking that I'd be okay. And when that situation arose, I wasn't prepared and I wasn't ready. And to be honest, it was a massive, massive slap in the face for me. And my coping mechanism was I ended up going out with the lads, having a good time, and something I ended up going home at about 2 in the morning. I ended up getting abuse from my wife at the time, and I ended up just getting up, getting out of bed, getting dressed, walking out, and I never went back. I walked away from a marriage because I didn't want to deal with it. I ended up moving in with Luke Ambler. One night I'd been out for a drink and I ended up coming home getting into a rage because of something that had happened, and I headbutted his wall, put my head through his wall. Thankfully it was a plasterboard wall, not a solid brick wall. You know, I'm waking up the next day not actually understanding what had gone on, sitting on his sofa, bursting into tears and basically thinking that I'd wasted my life. I've had a career what some of these kids dream and aspire to have, but my state of mental fitness was terrible.
Now, a decade out of the sport, Keith's preparing to educate others about dealing with major change through the Ahead of the Game programme. Later, he's presenting to the Milford Junior Rugby League team, but first, just time to catch up with a face-old rival.
You know, I look back to that time in Super League, right, and there was big personalities. I'm not necessarily saying that they don't exist anymore, but you look at the likes of Paul Schoolthorpe, yourself, Andy Farrell, big, sort of macho, larger-than-life sort of characters. And as productive as that was for your professional career, what's your take on that macho persona when it comes to actually dealing with issues that you're having?
The game was built on that, though. You look at the games from the 70s, 80s, early 90s, it was all about the fights, it was all about the aggression, all about the nasty side of it. It was basically thuggery. You coached it because, you know, you can't show weaknesses, you can't show injuries, because basically people will pick on the weak.
Is that why you knocked me out in 2008? You barely connected. I was making you feel good.
That's what I was more embarrassed about.
Well, that's it, right? Just don't do it again, Keith. All right. I think one thing I find interesting about your story, Keith, was when you mentioned change. So your career finishing was quite an abrupt source of change, and when I look back to people I speak to, change is always central to their story, whether it's to struggle or to success. And that point in your career, that change from being at the top of your game or there or thereabouts to then not being able to play the game, that was a huge change. Were you ready?
Yeah.
Were you ready to deal with that?
Yeah, I wasn't ready. It wasn't my time. I didn't believe, and I still say it now, it was taken away from me. My career was taken away from me. I fell out with the game. I fell out with a lot of people because I'd not accepted it. I've got to blame. Oh, it's your fault, it's the surgeon's fault. Used a dirty knife on my knee. Got an infection, these things happen. At the end of the day, it's nobody's fault. It just happens, doesn't it? It's life. The biggest constant in life is change, isn't it? And accepting that, and how you deal with that is a choice that you've got. I chose a negative way. I ended up basically acting like a kid again, going on the drink, and that was the wrong way. Now it's a case of managing it a lot better. Understanding that, being able to control the controllables and not worrying about the uncontrollables. I couldn't control what happened to my knee. And then it's how you deal with that. There's the trauma, there's managing it, and then it's the acceptance. The acceptance of things that happen in your life. Very thankful and appreciative and grateful for the career that I've had now, which I've had to come to terms with and accept and appreciate.
Players like Keith and fellow ex-pro Sean Lunt have joined forces with the Movember charity to find out whether professional athletes can successfully deliver mental fitness training to young people.
I'm scared, Keith. My mental health. I'd rather play back at Wembley than do this actually right now. I think I was less nervous back then. But I had 16 blokes with me though, didn't I? This, I've just got you big gallons. My anxiety is probably at the highest it's ever been, to be honest. I always get nervous, before a game, and it's just nerves at the end of the day, and we get it from good things. I've had it before games, big important games, and I've had it, daunting things like tonight, but hopefully these guys can take a lot from it and realise, just because I've played Super League and, I've been very fortunate in the game that we're all human at the end of the day, and these guys, what these are going through, I've probably felt it the same, so it's hopefully I relate to these youngsters and they can take something from it.
So for what we're here for today, this is Help a Mate Out, which is a mental health literacy workshop. I've got Sean Lunt here with me today. He's going to be my partner in crime and he's going to be helping me along.
Nearly 2 years to the day ago, I nearly died. So we were playing at Leeds, I was playing at Hull at the time, and I went into for a tackle and I hit the top of my head and I felt a crack in my back. Didn't think anything of it. Again, it was just a physical injury that we've all had before, right? I woke up the next day and I couldn't lift my head off my pillow. So I had to get my wife to lift my head off my pillow as I got up. So a couple of weeks went past and it just wasn't getting any better. It led to a blood poisoning illness called sepsis. Any of you heard of sepsis? Yeah. Well, I've been very, very lucky. So I got put into hospital for 3 weeks and then a lot of these kids, they look at us professionals and think we're invincible, but we're far from it. I got a life-threatening disease called sepsis, which led me being in hospital for 3 weeks. While I was on the medication, I felt great. It was good, and then one day the nurse came and said, "Oh, you're all good now. Your sepsis is all gone. Your counters are down. Everything's good." Well, I thought I was that was it, brilliant. I can get back to normal life, but that's when everything plummeted. You know, I hit rock bottom. I got a thing called post-sepsis syndrome, which is a bit like PTSD, and that was when my nightmare began, really. You know, I thought it was tough in hospital. I thought it was tough in them 6 weeks, but I didn't realise just how tough and mentally challenging that what I had to go through. You know, there's times where I just wanted to come home, lock myself in a room and not speak to anyone. Didn't even want to see my kids. I know it sounds awful to say, but that's just how it was. There's times where I'd just drive home from training and I'd park around the corner. I'd just start crying in the car. I didn't know what to do. You know, I didn't know which way to turn to. I had no motivation. You know, I couldn't walk upstairs without getting out of breath, and then I'd start, my anxiety would go through the roof, and then I'd get depressed after that. So it was just like a constant cycle, you know. Every day it was the same thing, you know, going around in circles. So just gonna ask each other how we're doing. I was snapping at the kids, I was snapping at my wife, and it wasn't fair on them when my ego was in the way. You know, it was like, I've got to be seen to look strong. You know, I'm a rugby player, I've got to be tough. When I finally opened up on my problems, they understood then, you know, and my wife was like, well, if you're not feeling very well, at least tell us and then we'll give you some space. And it was like the weight of the world had been taken off my shoulders. We can't help you if you don't tell anyone, yeah? I still get down now at times, but again, it's just something that I have to deal with and get over. Would I want my kids to go through what I went through and, you know, make the silly mistakes that I made? No. So hopefully educating these guys at a younger age stops them making stupid decisions.
The rapport players like Sean have built with countless young people in these sessions has encouraged discussions around topics rarely spoken about before.
Like Keith was saying before, we're all big, strong men, aren't we? We all like to think we can deal with all the problems that we get, but I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to do. But I sought out help. I went and spoke to sports psychiatrists, and they helped, you know, and I took day by day. So like we say on this continuum, guys, even if we go down to the red, we can come back up to the blue, because I'm fine now, all good. So I can pick my kids up from school. My wife still loves me, so we're all good, yeah. So that's sort of my journey on that mental continuum.
I've just got to say, your missus must be very strong, so have you seen the size of his head? So if you're head off the pillow, she must be a strong one.
I've been playing rugby league for 4 years. And my dream is to play in the Super League.
Yeah, everyone up for it, boys! 1, 2, 3, Melford!
Movember's Ahead of the Game campaign is reaching thousands of players like 14-year-old Lucas, starting conversations around mental fitness at an early age. These are young men who have already made rugby league a big part of their lives. For Lucas and his teammates, the programme sheds light on the realities of playing at the top level of the sport. Not just challenges on the field, but the obstacles successful players can be forced to overcome off it.
Yeah, so what if they aren't okay? What we're going to look for. So, again, Keepy, how you doing, pal?
Yeah, not too bad.
What have you been doing today?
Not much.
The sessions are about understanding that it's not just physical fitness that's important, but mental fitness too, in all aspects of life.
Right, fellas, so, as we're talking there, can we notice any of his body language?
Down. He was very down, looking down.
Looking down, yeah?
He wasn't like giving nice, happy replies.
Yeah, have you seen this presentation before? You're doing quite good, aren't you? Any others, guys?
It's obviously an eye-opener to see these people who you would think are invincible, to obviously open up about their life and have their own struggles. To have someone like Keith Senior, who's obviously a legend of rugby league, deliver the session was really impactful.
When I finished rugby, I went through some real dark times and really struggled.
The course taught us how to look out for our teammates and friends at school by giving us really important tips which can obviously help us identify people that are suffering with mental health issues.
And we'll talk about the stigma and everything that's involved about it, because we are big, tough men. We are all perceived as big, strong men, but we do struggle.
Every week at training, we're always told to look out for our teammates on the rugby pitch. But this course has really helped me understand that we need to look out for our teammates off the pitch as well.
Come in, lads, come in. Everyone all right? Yeah. What's everyone's thoughts on Sunday? On the game now, this? When I thought that we lost the game before we started. When I said to you before when we was warming up, we were dead quiet. No one wanted to speak. No one was saying anything. Everybody's heads were down. And how many times do I talk about body language? I talk about it all the time. It's a massive indicator. I can tell what somebody's thinking.
Paul would now coach his junior side, Shevington Sharks.
That's it. That's it, and pass it on. Good stuff. Bit louder here.
The team includes his son, George, a similar age to Lucas, who is starting his own journey in rugby league.
Woody, how good's this? You know, coaching kids, giving something back. It's good for the soul, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You know, feel like you have an obligation to give something back to the game that's give you so much. So, you know, who'd not want to hopefully have an hand in some of these young kids' futures if they want to be professional rugby players and, you know, help the development as people, really.
Yeah, and you certainly, achieved everything. An unbelievable career. What really interests me about you, Woody, is that at the peak of that career, that was when you was maybe at your most uncomfortable personally.
Yeah, you're right. You know, like, even though you can be seen to achieve things financially and, you know, your career's going well, it doesn't mean everything internal is going well. And I did have massive struggles. My perception on life wasn't right.
Paul's years at the pinnacle of rugby league were the most mentally testing of his life. And few could have comprehended the struggles he was facing.
From the outside, I had a lovely house, I had a couple of cars on the drive, I had 2 lovely kids, and my wife was actually expecting our 3rd child.
Sidney Pettibone, bang, bang.
But I just got to a point where, you know, I planned on taking my own life. A lot of people think my struggles started in 2012 after an horrific injury really in the grand final. But there's a big backstory before that injury actually happened. From the age of 12 or 13, I developed obsessive compulsive disorder. It's an illness where your head plays tricks on you, intrusive thoughts, you carry out rituals. And I lived with that for a long time, and on the back of that I got a lot of anxiety, and depression come on the back of it as well. You know, one of my lowest days was in 2014. I'd had a knee operation, and then my first game back I ruptured my biceps, so I missed a lot of rugby league, which, you know, looking back was a good coping mechanism for me in a lot of ways. That day, you know, I was contemplating it, and, you know, some guy drove up to me in a lay-by and virtually talked me out of it, give me a good telling off, because somebody that he'd known had recently they'd just done the same thing, and it was a massive eye-opener. You know, it was a big realisation about how my head can play tricks on me, and, you know, tell me that life's not worth living, but it actually is. And, you know, being in that place of sort of not wanting to die but also wanting to die is a difficult place to be. But, you know, I've got a really supportive family who love me and, you know, want to see the best for me. So, you know, speaking to my wife who's been my rock, it's just been a real blessing, really. And I think one of the biggest things at the moment is training to be an actual counsellor. Is sort of like counselling yourself and putting me in a good headspace as well. So that's been a massive positive. But today, I try and use them skills to be a better parent. You know, one of the major things that I do with my kids is I ask them, are they okay? You know, and then I listen to them and, you know, try to help them if they've got any issues going on in their life. You know, you can get through whatever difficult times you're going through, and there's coping mechanisms out there.
I developed OCD as a 13-year-old kid, and I lived with OCD. A lot of people don't take it serious because they think it's about having your CDs organised and having a nice tidy house. Well, it's not. There's a lot more to it than that.
I remember you in Australia, so we're on tour, and you had to touch the handrail the whole way down before we started training.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time thinking that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And didn't understand it, but that was a symptom of.
Yeah, and in my head, if I don't do that, I'm catastrophising things. You know, my family's going to die, the plane's going to crash on its way on the way home. All these things are going through my head if I don't do this. Yeah. That should have been the pinnacle of my career. I was touring with Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand. The height of my career, I was excelling career-wise, but I was at crisis point in my head.
How did you get from the point where you're considering taking your own life and you're catastrophising everything in your life to where you are now?
I ended up in Manchester Royal Infirmary, and at that point I was sat round with my wife and my 3 kids. My newborn had just been born, and I thought, you know what, I need to get myself out of this situation. So I had to do a lot of soul searching, and I surrounded myself with a great support network. And the people who I associate myself with now, the people who I can ring and speak openly about how I feel, if I need any advice, that is the key to where I am today. And having people who understand how you feel or can empathise with how you feel, you know, that is a massive, massive thing. To be able to sit down and share that, and people say, yeah, I've done that. And then they share back to me and I say, well, yeah, I've done that. And think, oh, I'm not on my own. There are people who think like this.
So you've got a calm mind now.
Yeah.
You know, you speak to people who you can empathise with, you hear coaching kids putting a bit back. Are you still working at it now? Is it a constant process for you?
Do you know what? It is, yeah, it is, but I am in such a good place. Like, my darkest days are like way behind me. I know exactly how I keep myself well. I can quite easily have a moment where, you know, maybe for a minute or 2 minutes, I can be catastrophising a situation, the world's going to end. But once I recognise that, and again, it might take me a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I just recognise it and I do what I need to do. And you know what, 9 times out of 10, it's pick the phone up and ring somebody who can support me.
Yeah.
And that's what I do.
Over the last 18 months, Ahead of the Game has touched the lives of 8,000 players, coaches and families from all disciplines of the sport. The evidence-based programme is using the power of sport to teach young people to spot the signs and symptoms of poor mental health.
You'll know, we were trained to be physically fast and strong and powerful. Nobody ever taught me mentally fit. But your mental fitness carries the key, but it goes hand in hand. And for you guys and gals that's going to, perform at the highest level of wheelchair rugby, you need both of them.
Are you guys ready? Yep, let's go. Just punch it out. Rest, boys. Single arm snatch. Right arm next. 2 rounds of it.
Robbie Hunter-Paul is a name synonymous with rugby league at the highest level.
Rest. Good work, boys. Keep going, Em. Keep going.
These days, the Bradford Bulls legend runs a marketing firm just outside of the city. At 11 a.m. every day, the team down tools and get active.
Let's go.
It's part of a health and productivity strategy that comes straight from the boss himself.
I was in an environment where physical fitness was part of what you did. So why don't I just make it a part of my environment? They work out every day, and because they're physically at their prime, no one's ever sick. Yeah, boys.
And Robbie Paul, they sing it now on the big screen.
From a hero on the field at Odsal to chief exec of his beloved Bulls during the most difficult time in their history. It was in 2016, 5 years after he hung up his playing boots, that Robbie faced the toughest months of his life.
I was CEO at the Bradford Bulls, so a real position of responsibility, and we got to payday in one of those months, and on payday, found out from the accounts department that there wasn't enough money in the bank. think collectively there was between 150 and to 200 people part-time and full-time. At the time, all the rest of the directors were abroad, and so all roads led back to me. And I got to admit, it was heartbreaking. You know, I had people coming wanting their wages to my door, and I had nothing I could tell them. It was embarrassing, it was frustrating, and it was frightening. I'll admit that. The mother of my two oldest children, in a very short amount of time, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she passed away. Both of my kids were living with me at the time, so I had the challenge of trying to hold them together. Their mum's dying. All of that knitted together in a really short amount of time. And throughout my life, I'd been a captain, I'd been a leader, been the person with all the answers. So that's what I expected of myself. And so I was trying to deal with all of these problems, and I couldn't think straight. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I wasn't doing things that I normally do, like daily exercise. I was just trying to breathe, and I was even struggling to breathe. I was just being pulled apart at the seams. We got this. Nearly home. We're nearly home. I've always been smart enough to listen to doctors and coaches and physiotherapists when I needed physical support, and this was an opportunity for me to listen to people when I needed mental support. And so I reached out to Rugby League Cares, through Rugby League Cares out to Sporting Chance, and very quickly they put me on one-to-one sessions with a counsellor. It started my journey into mental health support. Are we ready to get underway?
Yeah, there's one not in, I don't think it's coming.
Okay. I've always considered myself a strong person, and I've always felt like I've had all the answers, and until I started to learn that there was a better way of looking after your own mental health, very much like there's a better way of looking after your own physical health by eating the right foods, exercising, doing things like meditation, taking time, being present. I started to then learn that there was a better way to look after your mental health. And when you look after your mental health, everything else falls into place. So afternoon, lads. Hope everyone's doing okay this evening. You are? Are you all good? Yeah. Okay, let me just introduce myself. When we slide down the continuum towards mental illness and mental health issues, our productivity lowers. When you move back up the continuum towards mental fitness, you're more productive, you're a happier person, your quality of life improves. And that's something that no one ever tells you.
It's real-world insights like this that Robbie brings to the Ahead of the Game programme.
As lads, we've got a responsibility to actually understand our own mental health a little bit better, start having those conversations.
Broadly targeting teenagers in junior rugby league clubs across the country. 1 in 5 of them may experience a mental health problem in any given year.
So the ALEC model. ALEC model, it's an acronym. We ask how a mate's doing, we listen to what they say. Important that we listen to what they're saying, and we pay attention, because there's nothing worse than trying to tell someone what's going wrong and they're not paying attention. Mobile phone's more important. It ain't. It might mean their life. We encourage action and we check in.
October 9th, 2021, grand final day at Old Trafford. In the 728 days since Super League's biggest clash was last played here, Movember's Ahead of the Game programme has educated thousands of people, building lasting conversations around mental health.
What's one thing that you'll take away from today? Go on, pal.
Listen to people.
That's it, mate. Good stuff.
So what are the things you might notice? Lack of sleep. When you feel dizzy, yeah, shortness of breath like that one. Stomach feels tight. You guys are bang on.
If your mate telling you, do you know I'm struggling, what do you have to do to help him, do you think?
Listen to them.
Exactly. Do you know what? There's nothing else you have to do apart listening to him.
Shortly, the players delivering the sessions and some of the junior recipients will meet again in the culmination of Super League 26. Challenge Cup winner Johnny Lawless has been part of the ahead of the game journey too, and knows personally about the power of talking when it comes to mental health.
When I heard what it was about, I jumped to the chance. It's been thoroughly rewarding for myself to go down community clubs delivering these presentations to kids from 12 to 18-year-old. It's been given me a great insight. It's great.
Why did you feel compulsed to get involved and to try and make a difference?
I'm involved at a community club called Siddle, my amateur club. That's where I used to play for as a kid. Just over 10 years ago, over a 16-month period, we lost 2 players. Obviously down to the mental health who took their life, 2 great people who were very close to Matthew Smith and Nick Shaw.
Let's think about that, go back to that point. You know, what was going through your mind, you know, when this was going on, and how did you feel at that time?
Matthew, such a popular guy, charismatic, very likeable guy. His close friends were devastated by it, and within 16 months of that, we lost another. My closest friend, Mick Shaw, ex-professional at Leeds Rhinos. We'd signed pro together as kids. Yeah. We retired together at the same time. Went back and played amateur together at the same time, and then retired from amateur at the same time. So we did everything in tandem. It was devastating to lose such a close friend. I lost those 2 friends through poor mental health. So me being here means quite a lot. And I think some of the things what they wish they'd known about, you guys are going to know about today. And it's called Help Out, Mate. Knowing what I know now about mental health and the bit of education what I've got around it, there were signs and symptoms there. And the good things now, we're going into the community clubs now on this Movember presentation, talking about what signs and symptoms you can recognise in a friend, and it maybe initiate a conversation. And that's when we're bringing the ALEC model.
No, well, this ALEC's really important, isn't it? So tell us a bit more about that.
So it's ALEC's just a simple way of remembering what to do if you think your friend might be struggling. It's an acronym which means we ask how the friend is, we listen to what they have to say, we're using active listening skills which we teach the kids about, and we encourage them to get help. That could be speaking to a parent or a family member or a coach or your club welfare officer, or going to see a doctor. And then we check in after, which is really important. So we've done all that effort to ask how they are and encourage them and get help. We check in how they are after and see where they are. So how do you guys communicate now? Snapchat? Xbox on COD? Nobody plays Fortnite anymore, do they? That's yesterday, that's gone. Yeah, what is it, COD? What else? FIFA? Yeah. GTA? Yeah, we know it's COD, don't we? Yeah. So you can communicate, you can back it up with something, can't you? However you guys communicate, just follow up later, be smart, and just ask them how they are. Did they manage to speak to an adult? Did you go and see that teacher? Can I help you anyway? I can currently say, John, I think it has changed this last few years, and kids do seem to have a better basis of mental health to start with than what I did and my generation did, which is a really good thing. But just having to know that, to get out, reach out and get that help, it's not a weakness. Talk to a friend, talk to a teammate, and get the help you need and get back to being mentally fit like we want to be, playing this tough sport, what we all play.
Yeah, and the sport feeds into it, doesn't it? Because the sport is tough and robust, and we're probably coached to hide weaknesses, aren't we? Yeah. So Rugby League has got a very unique sort of stance when it comes to mental health, or unique circumstances.
Absolutely. I think the game Rugby League, we all love it. I love my kids playing it because the life lessons he gets out of it. Learning how to win, learning how to lose, the respect for your opposition, the toughness of it. It's physically tough, it's mentally tough. So we're throwing all this at them, and it could create cracks and weaknesses. We want them kids to know that that's okay. But come out and talk about it if you are struggling.
In the most testing of times, the Ahead of the Game programme has unlocked the wisdom of former top flight players and has seen them form relationships with the newest entrants into the sport. Young players with ambitions to reach these same celebrated heights, now better equipped for what lies ahead of them. Today, they're reunited to enjoy the sport on its grandest stage, with new skills to take on all of life's challenges.
From the moment I got involved with Ahead of the Game, I just felt like it was the right thing to do. It's been so beneficial for me personally, and I've gained so much out of it.
We had a great day today, and the thing I'll take away most is to look out for my mates.
If I ever see a friend that's a bit down, I'll always ask if they're all right.
Seeing that the kids are actually learning something, coming away having some conversations, and it's really reassuring that some of them understand.
This is the untold journey to the grand final of Super League. For the teams on the pitch today, it's been a test of their physical and mental resolve. But this story has pointed the cameras in the other direction, to a pioneering project, testing whether professional athletes can effectively deliver mental fitness training to young people through the lens of their own lived experience. Behind the scenes, we can all face challenges that feel just as intense as a Super League Grand Final, but that are unique to us as individuals. How we face up to them is something that unites us all in this stadium, across the sport and in our communities. Some of Rugby League's most decorated athletes are now leading the way, sharing knowledge, experience and solutions with the next generation. The conversation has started, and it's time to talk.